Hello, good evening, and welcome to PM Express. It's the second show we've had in this new year, and we're grateful for cherished audience for the time you made for us in 2012, and you made us the best current affairs program running on TV. Now, the beginning of every year witnesses an address from a sitting president which captures happenings in the country and the state of the nation. The address also contains promises of policies and programs put in place to promote the development of Ghana. Last year in January, in the State of the Nation's address delivered by the late President Mills, may his soul rest in peace, among others, the promises that were captured was one, to ensure the passage of the Freedom of Information Act, expedite the passing of a national broadcasting law, elaborate a code of conduct in government that includes key information disclosure ethics and anti-corruption measures. He also promised the establishment of a Member of Parliament Constituency Development Fund, which is separate and apart from the District Assembly's Common Fund, in order to release the District Assembly's Common Fund for the exclusive use of the District Assemblies and to remove one of the sources of tension between district chief executives and members of parliament. The promise also included the assignment of national service graduates to members of parliament as research assistants. Now, whether these promises were fulfilled or not, this year the ritual continues. The sitting president, President John Dramani Mahama, will be delivering the State of the Nation's address tomorrow, January 4th, 2013. Join us to find out expectations of possible issues to be captured and given priority. And with me in the studio tonight to share the views of this is Kofi Bento, Vice President of Imani. I will have on the phone later on in the show Managing Editor of Insight newspaper, Kwesi Pratt, for some perspectives from him. I will be talking to the IE and the NDC to share their views on the subject. As always, my name is Stephen Enti. Before we launch into the discussion tonight, let me tell you about a new program, the News Generation program, which is coming on the Kids channel and Joy News channel. Every once in a while, a program comes along which defines the voice of a generation. Multi-TV is once again in the forefront of providing relevant and timely information through a new and exciting program called The News Generation. The News Generation is a 30-minute news magazine program for young people aged between the 12 and 15. The program aims to provide relevant and independent news for children and to give them a voice while highlighting issues of child rights. The first transmission date is this Sunday, January 5th, 2013, and you have to make a date this Sunday. News Generation is on Sundays, and it will be on Multi-TV for Kids channel at 3:30 p.m. and then it will be on Joy News channel at 4 p.m. Make a date with us on Sunday for Kids channel and Joy News channel for this new and innovative program. So, Mr. Bento, it's great to have you in the studio.
Thank you.
We're grateful for all the time you gave us on PM Express. We call you, we come to your office, and you gladly speak to us to throw light on the issues which we discussed all year round. It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
State of the Nation's address. Would you say that the Parliament goes ahead with the State of the Nation's address as a mere formality?
It's a formality, but it's a good formality. I mean, there are things that you have to necessarily do in the life of a country, even if you don't do them well. And one of those things is to account. And last year, we were here on the same issues, and we're talking about the State of the Nation address, and we were talking about some of the things that are good about it and some of the things that are not so good. But the truth is, even though I have my complaints about how the State of the Nation's address has been delivered in the past, I still think it's a very important ritual. And if you remember from last year, I made the point that the State of the Nation is actually a historical report. We are talking about what has happened in the past year since the last State of the Nation address till now. And the president should give us some kind of a snapshot of where we are today. Okay, but usually they ramble on about all kinds of things, and really it doesn't connect with the reality. Anyway, they make promises, they say all kinds of things, and we all forget about it in about 2 weeks or so. So in short, yes, it's a very important ritual. We've not gotten it perfectly yet, but again, nothing is really perfect. So yes, we should go ahead and we'll all listen to the president, and we know he won't say all the things that we want him to say, but at least he will say some things, and we'll take a cue from there and then progress as a nation.
In the last State of the Nation's address by Mills, I'm trying to get some aspects of it. He spoke about governance, and then he went on to make a series of statements, declarations, promises. Then he moved on to the challenging global economic environment, where he gave a snapshot of the pressures that are leaking down from the global crisis to us, Ghana, and how we will manage it. And then he spoke about agriculture, and he spoke about the private sector development, etc. Now, in your work, would you say that this could have been done different? And how you mentioned that you've seen the presidents go ramble on. What would be a good State of the Nation's address for you? And structurally, let's start. How would it be?
It will be an honest report of what has gone on in the previous year. Okay.
Is that to suggest that you don't think that presidents have been honest in giving us a State of the Nation?
It's not for me to say. I'm an analyst. Okay, I look at the facts on the ground. Okay, and I can make a determination of whether somebody has spoken the truth about the facts on the ground or not. So if tomorrow the president gives the State of the Nation's address, and I've been here for the past 1 year, all of us have been here for the past 1 year, we know what is going on. And given what job I do, I particularly monitor these things, all right? So if you say something which is not exactly true or is off the point, we all can tell that it's off the point. So it's not a matter of calling somebody honest or dishonest. But if you ask me what should be a good State of the Nation's address, I'll say it should be an honest account of the things that have gone on in the past year. And that honesty must extend to the things that we intended to do but could not do. And hopefully why we could not do them. That approach allows you to look back and make amends. But if we totally forget what we said last year, we come on this year and find a series of words to put together and then fill the time, okay? And then we forget it in 2 weeks, and then we come back again the next year, say a whole host of things. I mean, last year I was saying something about how certain things feature all the time in the State of the Nation's address, and nothing really is done differently.
Like what?
Private sector development.
Private sector development.
Water, health, energy. Okay, transport, telecoms,
infrastructure development,
infrastructure, wages,
healthcare,
public sector. You know, they all throw them into the soup and then they spin words around them. I was making a joke last year, and I still think that joke is valid, that any final year economics student can write 75% of the State of the Nation's address. And then you fill in the rest,
words that will mean nothing.
Yeah, and a day may come when you really look forward to hearing what the president thinks in terms of the State of the Nation's address. Because even though all of us have been around, it will be quite interesting for the president to come on and say, I spoke about this particular thing last year and we intended to get to this point. But because of this and this and this and this, we were able to get to this point. And this is what I'm going to do about it this time round. What I mean is, we all know what has happened, but we don't know why it happened. Even if we can't know every reason why it happened, it will be interesting to see the president's point of view of why it happened. Take water. I don't think there's been a movement in terms of water, okay, in Accra or the rest of the country. I'm not saying they are not working. They are working, all right? But why haven't we seen quantum leaps? And I say Ghana is the one country where good water flows from the north into the sea in the south. So it's an engineering challenge, and we should be able to deal with it. Because if it's money, I mean, clearly judgment there to come in. We find money for all kinds of things. So we should be able to find money for these important things. So it will be interesting to me to find the president's point of view of why we haven't made that much progress in terms of water. Take health. We were saying the same things about National Health Insurance Scheme last year, this time. We are saying the same things today. And what are those things? it does not look like it is running well. The opposition says it's collapsed. The people running the scheme says it has not collapsed. The government says it is growing. But the simple test you can do is ask 10 people around your house, around your home, in your office, how many of them have gone to the hospital in the past 3 months, and how many of them use National Health Insurance Scheme, and why. Okay, then we will know what the state of the nation is. It will be interesting for me to get the point of view of the president as to why things are the way they are. Okay, then, you know, we'll take time to sit and just listen, and then hope that the president will take certain steps to deal with the issues, you know, in the coming year. Because next time around, he will report to us. The danger is that after a while, we are going to make this an empty ritual that nobody will take seriously. And I hope we don't get to that point. So yes, it's an important ritual, but I think we can do.
You hope we don't get to that point.
Yeah,
but
point
are you confident that we might not get to that point?
I am hopeful that we would improve with the years. I am hopeful. And these are the things Parliament is there for. You know, after the State of the Nation, they go through the whole ritual of discussing it. And frankly, I've had huge problems also with the way they discuss it. You can tell from the beginning, everybody on the government side will say, oh, that was a fantastic State of the Nation address. And everybody on the opposition will say, oh, that was Sakawa.
Yeah,
you know, you know,
yeah, make all the noises that
you know,
come with it.
I would wish that some more seriousness will go into the discussion, and maybe one day they will get back to the president and say, we have taken last year's State of the Nation's address, and we think you deviated from, you know, reporting on the State of the Nation. Look at the State of the Nation today. The one big issue in this country today is the court case against the president's election. Okay, it will be interesting to have a certain viewpoint. I don't mean the president should go too much into it. Okay, but if he totally leaves it out of the State of the Nation, he hasn't done a good State of the Nation's address. It will be interesting to get his viewpoint on things. In fact, let me say this, the president has been very dignified in his utterances concerning that particular issue. And I think he must be commended for the way he's handled it. He's been most presidential about it and really has done his best. But when you're giving the State of the Nation's address, you can't leave the big elephant in the room. Make a statement about it. If you leave it to me, I would want the president to tell me how he's taking all that. Of course, he won't take it too good. But then he should assure me that he is going to focus on his job, he's going to do it to the best of his abilities, and then the big issue will be how he's going to take what comes out in terms of the verdict. You understand? And maybe how he's going to handle, you know, his people. And I hope he also has a word or two for, you know, the people on the other side, that's the MPP, in terms of, look, this is how we should proceed if things like this happen, you know, and I think that, I mean, 2 months down the line, we should have a good country. Okay.
Now, the flaws you have identified with the nation's address, whose fault is it really? Is it the technocrats who put it together, or is the inability of the presidency to assimilate the issues that come, to do a proper and well thought through analysis before presenting it in Parliament?
It's the president's duty. And again, we have an executive presidency in this country, and that is a very, very important thing. It means the president takes ultimate responsibility for everything that happens under his watch. This is the president's State of the Nation's address. We don't expect him to do everything himself. So he will have people doing different things, but I expect that he will draw the outline. He will give directions in terms of what research must be done and what information must be brought to his table. He is going to take a look at the first drafts and give certain directions as to how he should go to, and he will ultimately edit the final draft. So there should be no controversy about this. The State of the Nation's address is the president's address, and he should bear responsibility for it, whether it's good or it's bad. And I think that situation where we tend to, you know, of course the technocrats do things, they contribute, but we should not blame or give too much credit indeed or the speech writers who may have weighed in. Indeed, the president should have agreed with everything he say before he steps up the podium and says them. So I hope that in future, and there's nothing to show that this president, President Mahama, is not going to do a good job. He's a new president, and he's different. Okay, so really I'm hopeful, and I'm looking forward to his State of the Nation's address, and I hope that being vice president in the past year, you know, he's had a handle on the big things that have happened, and we all know them. okay? And he'll be able to speak to those things and show us that he is this kind of president who is focused on the issues and will not throw the words around like all the others have done and just, you know, run away with it.
So, do you expect anything different?
Yes, I
from
do.
this president? I mean, because we spoke about the ritual, so he's coming to a few presidents have done it in the past. For John Dramani Mahama, do you expect anything different?
Yes, I'm keeping hope alive. Mr. Mahama has shown himself to be maybe a pragmatic president. He likes to, you know, come down to the level where people believe they can reach him. He's actually used accessible in his campaign. And somehow he tries to bring himself down to the ordinary persons and still manage to communicate to everybody across the spectrum. I am hoping that, again, being vice president and having knowledge of all the things that have gone on, he will deal with the issues. He doesn't have to dodge blame necessarily. Okay, talk about STX. That was a big deal last year.
Yeah.
Okay, you know, and a couple of things. I hope that he will speak to them. I am going to hold out, and I might end up disappointed if he goes, you know, the normal way and goes through the normal things that everybody goes through without, you know, real substance. But I am hoping that he will bring that fresh air that I think he represents, okay, and really deal with the issues that confront.
So he represents fresh air for
well,
you?
Yes, he represents
in
fresh
your
air.
calculations or in your analysis? I mean, how do you arrive at that conclusion that he represents fresh air?
He's the youngest president in the, you know, series, okay, and he comes in with a certain newness, all right? So for whatever it is worth, I think he represents some fresh air, and we hope he lives up to that, okay? We have not tested him really. In the past 6 months or so that he's been president, he's been a caretaker president, and for the most part, he's, for instance, refused to even do a cabinet reshuffle. Okay, he's kept things down, he's run his campaign, he's won his election, and we don't really see what the real John Mahama represents. So on the face of it, he's this young president, okay, who we now have, and we are now going to see what he's really made of. Okay, if he started himself as, you know, all the things that he says he is, this is the beginning of proving that he is who he says he is. And yes, I mean, people have said that, I mean, his youth is an addition, you know, and the fact that, you know, we look back at his antecedents, where he's been and the things, he's been using his iPad all over the place, and, you know, those things that, you know, give you a sense of, you know, newness, okay? I'm going to check and see from the speeches that he gives us whether he's going to be, you know, fresh air in terms of those things as well.
All right, so let's take STX for example. Typically, what would you expect any president who is presenting the State of the Nation's address in reference to STS in particular to tell Ghanaians?
The truth.
What is the truth?
First, the truth that we all know, okay, which is to say, STS was not a plan that was conceived, contemplated, planned out, and executed. In the State of the Nation's address, in the budgets, and all the major statements of economic policy in the year preceding the STX and in the year of the STX, it was not mentioned. An honest president will admit that we were eager to try and deal with the housing crisis. In our eagerness, we went for this deal. And he must have the humility to admit before Ghanaians that we hastened into it. And that is why we've ended up where we've ended up. Throwing words around like boardroom wrangling and all the things they've done for a whole year to paper over the real issues won't help. So first, I would like an admission of the mistakes that were made at the conceptual stage. And then also, I would expect the president to say that much as we're eager to try and get this thing to work, and there's some credit that the government can be given for STX, and the credit is just the willingness and the determination to push through. Okay, the problem with that is that when you are charging down the wrong road, okay, you should not be encouraged. But there is something there, the willingness and the determination to push through. So he should harp on that and say, we were willing, we were determined to do this thing. But look, we got it all wrong. And that's why one after the other, everything crumbled. They pushed it through Parliament wrongly and all those things. It helps to come back and admit where you've made mistakes, because I have already heard that there's another company in town purporting to come and build us another 200,000 houses. I have already heard they are parading the corridors of power, and maybe we'll hear another announcement very similar to STX. Now, if the president is honest about the mistakes we made, and we have made mistakes, which is why we ended up where we ended up, spent a whole year stressing over this issue, then we can be assured, or at least we can, have a little hope that the same mistakes won't be repeated. But those who refuse to learn from history are bound to repeat its mistakes.
Right, Mr. Bentel, we're joined on the line now by Kwesi Pratt, who is managing news editor for the Insight newspaper. Good evening, sir, and thanks for joining us on PM Express.
Yes, sir.
You have been there, you have heard and listened to several State of the Nation's address, including last year's address. Looking back, do you expect anything different, a deviation, for example, from this ritual by John Mahama?
Master, I can't hear you well.
Right, I'm saying that. If you can hear me, I'm saying that you may have witnessed and listened to a lot of State of the Nation addresses, in particular last year's. Do you expect anything different for this year's State of the Nation's address to be presented by John Mahama?
I think there's a lot of expectation. A lot of people think that the of John Dramani Mahama is the birth of a new era. People have a lot of expectations, social, economic, and political expectations. The conditions of life of the Ghanaian people have not necessarily and so on. So people expect him to talk about improved access to education, improved access to health, people's access to potable water and so on. Those are critical things that people expect, to hear from the president.
Well, but civil society groups have said that these things, water, electricity, education, we've always heard about them. We've sometimes heard promises that have been made by presidents on achieving A, B, C, or D, and nothing really have come up about them. I mean, in terms of structure, what exactly do you expect the president, for example, to begin to address when it comes to education?
Well, people who talk about don't know our history. Ghana has made a lot of strides since independence. There was a time when the whole of the northern region, there was only one middle school in Yendi. Today, there are middle schools in almost practically every village in the northern region. There are secondary schools in every major in the northern region. Very, very significant improvement. Before Kwame Nkrumah, the Ghana education secondary schools did not exist. Today we have them. Today we have state universities. That is improvement. Electricity coverage over the last 2 years has gone up, significantly, and so on. So, we are making progress. The point is, a lot of people expect a lot more progress to be made. A lot of people know that the conditions in which the Ghanaian people live are simply appalling, and we need to move forward.
Now, Kwesi, speaking to you as a journalist, the coverage in particular of State of the Nation's address.
At all, I can't
right.
At all.
All right. I think where you are, there is a lot of noise in the background where Mr. Pratt is. We'll try to re-establish contact with Kwesi Pratt, and then we will get back to the discussion when we My name is Stephen Anti, and you're watching PM Express live on your Joy News channel. I have with me in the studio Kofi Bentel, who is Vice President of Imani, and you heard on Kwesi Pratt, who was discussing some different angles of the expectations. We'll try to bring him back on. You can join us by text 1760, or you can post your comments on our Facebook or facebook.com/multi-TV-world. We'll take a short break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to PM Express. My name is Stephen Anti, and Kofi Bentel is here. A text message from Alhaji Anas says that he expects corruption and frequent gas shortages to be addressed by the President during the State of the Nation's address. Corruption, gas shortages. Are these specific enough for the President to want to spend some time in addressing, or would you say they're not very, very important in the scheme of things?
They're very important. And again, with the State of the Nation address, look, There are things in every country which are critically important but do not directly affect the ordinary person. For instance, the management of the macroeconomy. Okay, the things that are done underground to make sure the city doesn't fall, for instance. There may be so many things that are done which you may not see. To certain people, it will make a lot of sense. But you should spend considerable time speaking to things that affect the ordinary person directly, like gas shortage. Okay, I contend, and we have always made the case, that even when we didn't have gas, with proper management, just proper management, we would avoid gas shortages. And I don't mean to, compare one government to the other, but in this case, it's particularly important. If you watched the tenure of President Kufuor, for 8 years, we didn't have petrol queues. We hardly had gas shortages. We tracked that stuff, okay? And it's amazing because we had been making the case earlier that manage store well, okay, organize things well, and you shouldn't have a problem with this. And for 8 years, we didn't have petrol queues, we didn't have problems.
But Kufuor left government with tore in debt.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it means the management was not top-notch after all.
So I'm saying two things. There are things you do underground which people don't feel. Okay, and then there are things that affect them every day. When you talk about energy, it has a direct effect and a collateral effect in the economy. Okay, so talk about gas. Why don't we have gas? Why do people have to queue for gas in today's day and age? Look, the stuff is such that if it's running out within the economy, there is an MPA which is taxed to monetize, so we will know. Why does it run out? Okay, the MPA has some kind of a formula. They say they have some kind of mechanism for making up the price and all that. The structures seem to have been built to avoid the situations that we get. So if I were the president, I'll ask, why do we have these problems? And I'll tell the people, if it's some major issue we need to deal with, let's deal with it. Because you know what? In trying to keep maybe the price of energy down, you will end up making people suffer and pay more. So sometimes when you articulate these things clearly, and it means we have to increase the price, okay, and make sure we are going to get it all the time, I think people will agree with you. But at the end of the day, believe me, in the past, if you track these things, so you realize that sometimes when it gets hard, they'll say, okay, let's increase the price, and then we are going to get the supply even. They increase the price, we don't get even supply. Same thing with telecoms, other utilities. I really mean the utilities such as light, and water, because we've had that debate about increasing the tariffs, and PURC is supposed to make sure that ECG doesn't do the doom, so we increase it, still we have the problems. So corruption, yes, very much, although it may not affect people directly, it spoils things within the system. Okay, I mean, everybody is angry about what we hear about the Wayombe case, for instance, and all those other things, and it messes morale. Okay, so these things the president must take time to deal with. Okay, light, water, gas, petrol, deal with it, roads, okay, deal with it, and then you can deal with macroeconomy and all those other things that many people may not understand. You have to have a balance.
But would you make a prediction that you're setting that the president, John Mahama, will address gas, for example? Gas is key.
I have no basis to make a prediction as to what the president will do. I don't know, I haven't seen, and I have no idea where he's going to go. But what I'll say is that if he doesn't, that will be a slip. This is the state of the nation. This is how the nation has been. And I always say, telling me the state of the nation is like telling me what I have been experiencing in the past year. But you should still tell me. What I want to hear more is why. Why did I queue for gas? Why did I have to live with a gang of 4 roads and for 4 years not see anything until the last year? Why is it that still the motorway lights can't seem to be fixed once and for all? Why is it that street lights still don't work even on the principal ceremonial roads of Accra? Why is my water the way it is? So tell me what I've experienced, but also tell me why.
About fuel, let's talk about fuel subsidies and what do you think the solution should be in managing our fuel situation? Is it the removal of subsidies? As a country, are we ready for that, to perhaps pay more? I mean, realistic rates?
Ghana is a country of 25 million people, and the 25 million people, 60% don't have cars. If you take the 40% who have cars, okay, many of the cars, second-hand cars, small cars, okay, are not necessarily very high consuming cars, okay. I was going to go through a long analysis, but I'll leave it there. The long and short of that matter is that if we subsidize fuel today in this country, we are simply giving money to rich people. There is very little justification for subsidizing fuel. Fuel is one of those things that if you need, you will buy. And when you buy it, you use it for things that bring you returns that justify the expense you've incurred in them. I understand when the price of petrol goes up, everything, is affected one way or the other. But the point is, we should look at how much money we are using to subsidize fuel. And if you go through the analysis, see where that subsidy is going, and then let's questioning ourselves. It is not the time to go into all that analysis. Has been done, and there will be time to do that. But the short of the matter is that it is not wise expenditure to put tax money behind subsidizing fuel. The way we are doing.
Fuel subsidy has become a big political issue. Perhaps the various presidents and leadership of this country have been unable to take the bull by the horn and absolutely remove fuel subsidies because it's a political decision. It might come back to bite them. Do you think that John Dramani Mahama can take that decision?
In Ghana, we buy fuel maybe higher than they buy in the US. So when people talk about fuel subsidy, sometimes what you need to do is to go through the list of things that make up your fuel price. You'll be amazed how many taxes pad that price, okay, as against the raw price of fuel, okay. So sometimes when we talk about fuel subsidy, the truth of the matter is that there are arguments that we're actually not subsidizing fuel because government is padding that tax. So for me, fuel subsidies don't make sense.
So what makes sense?
Okay, what makes sense is for us to have full cost recovery when it comes to fuel. You should pay for all the fuel you use. And if what you're going to use it for, okay, brings you a certain kind of return which makes sense, it will pay you back for it. All right? So really, the issue should be very simple, which is why I think government has no business running tall. Okay? What the government must do, and I think a few people have tried, but I don't know why they don't get it. I think it has to do again with the subsidy issues and the pricing issues, but privatize it. Privatize it, and if you want to tax it, tax it. Okay? The bottom line is that we are not doing good when it comes to financing of fuel in this country. And that's why we keep getting the hiccups that we are getting. Shortage here, a problem. Look at premixed fuel. Okay? We end up bungling the whole thing, and then everybody's complaining. Leave those things that the market can deal with and let the market deal with them. If you really want to pad people and subsidize all kinds of things or help people along, you can do it in a number of other ways, okay, so that those people will be helped in one way. But when it comes to the issue of fuel, if you look at the whole price, you will see that there are a lot of taxes there which are quite questionable even, okay, and you ask yourself, where is all that money going? All kinds of levies, all kinds of buffers, all kinds of things. Recently one went to court and the MPA was asked to take it off. Okay, so that real debate, I mean, has been had in certain quarters, but I think the real impression hasn't come out well. I doubt if really we are subsidizing fuel that much. The issue is to have a clear policy for government to get out of those things. Okay, if you want to tax it in a certain way. Leave the private sector to use all its efficiencies to deliver this thing so we can get it when we need it. And I think things will run better.
Do you think the president or any president will consider these analyses as part of their preparation for delivering the state of the nation?
Every president considers it. But presidents don't have to make simple economic decisions. And indeed, they have to make political decisions, economic decisions that have social effects and all those things. My problem is the thinking, the research, and the analysis that goes into the decision making. The quality of advice they get. All right, that's my problem. If you ask me, what should we do with TOR, Tamale Refinery? I can spend 1 week explaining to you all the things that we should do, but it will come down to this. Fast track Tamale Refinery to the stock exchange, and government should get out of that place. But have strict regulation of Tamale Refinery, but government money should not be in it. And there'll be a week's worth of, analysis to go there. Now, I admit that presidents don't make simple economic decisions, but at the end of the day, the decisions they make must bear them out in the effect those decisions have. So even if we don't question what went into the decision making, after the fact, when we have seen the effect of those decisions, we must question the decision making. And consistently, our presidents have looked at the whole spectrum of things and come up with decisions which ultimately have not led to good. So I am not one of those people who will say, just make a decision based on economics. But I'm saying whatever informs your decision making must bear you out in terms of its effect at the end of the day. So I will look at that. And if I look at that, I'll now question, how did you come to this conclusion? So yes, they all consider it. And indeed, again, I don't mean to be critical or praise one government, but if you remember when President Kufuor came in, there was a huge raise in fuel prices. Everybody complained. Some of us said, well, if it's the bitter pill we have to swallow, let's swallow it. And part of that stabilized things a bit, although it was a bitter pill. But you know, I think it was a good thing. Later on, we lost that momentum. I don't mean we should just keep increasing. I still contend that we are paying more than people are paying in the US for fuel. And I don't think that is fair, you know, given our states, you know, our economic state. So questions must be asked in terms of that. But when it comes to the decision making, I think the leaders should make good decisions, even if they are difficult. The end will prove that they took a good decision. And we'll all hail them for it.
Are you very optimistic about Ghana?
I live here. That is why I live here. And I tell people that the name of my organization is Imani. Imani means faith and hope. And for us, we don't take it lightly. If I were not optimistic about Ghana, I would leave. I would take my kids and we will leave, and I can do it. Many of my friends have done it. I spoke at the Spring Board last year, and for once I had the opportunity to speak about the things that are good about this country. And I'm telling you, in the past 3 years, Ghana has had the fastest growing economy in this world, on this planet. Ghana has fantastic human resources. The education system we are complaining about produced Kofi Annan, produced Ekuya Kwenye here. It produced fantastic people. We have 2 engineers in NASA. Okay, we have everything. We don't have an excuse to be poor. In fact, most of my frustration about this country comes from the fact that we don't have a good excuse for being where we are. Okay, we don't have real problems. Real problems is when you have a tornado, a tsunami, and a nuclear fallout, which is what they get in Japan. A real problem is when you have Hurricane Sandy. There is no nuclear weapon, no planning that can come up against that kind of situation. We have places where they have real problems, okay, and they recover quickly. Ghana, you can sleep outside 12 months a year. Nothing will happen to you. We have water, the Volta Lake. You can drink straight from the Volta Lake. It flows from the north to the south, all right? I mean, water, health, whatever. I mean, seriously speaking, we shouldn't be in the situation we are in. And so the frustration is about how we can make simple decisions if we really want to solve problems, and we'll get things fixed. We have a total workforce in the public and civil sector of less than 1 million people. Indeed, it's about 600,000 people. And these people have held the rest of us to run 24 million of us. Okay, somebody should just fix the problem of productivity in that place, and we are pretending it's a big deal. Walmart, one company, has 2 million staff, and they pay them every time, all the time, on time. Nurses get posted to Kumasi, and they don't get their pay for 6 months to 1 year. These are not problems. These are things that leaders sit down and knock out. And then we face the real problems of water, health, you know, and the things that if we don't do will affect us in the coming, you know, years. So I am absolutely optimistic about Ghana. And it all comes down to leadership. And I'm hoping, okay, that we will get that thing right once and for all and deal with the simple things that we have to deal with. We all travel and we see what goes on. Yeah. You can see a road for miles, okay? And you ask yourself, human beings built this, okay? So short answer to the question, I'm absolutely optimistic about Ghana, but I'm frustrated too. Frustrated because we don't have to have the problems that we have.
Well, we'll take a short break. This is the right time to break, and we'll be right back for more. This is PM Express, and I'm here with Kofi Bento, Vice President Imani. I got onto the phone line with Kwesi Pratt earlier. The line was bad. We're still trying to establish contact. We'll be right back. Welcome back to PM Express. I'll read some of your messages that are coming in. Ajino Bismarck, you say, let us all support the president spiritually and physically to build Ghana. Ghana is for all of us. And Asan Ampedu Anna says, huge corruption, gas shortage, doomso. These are expectations that people are putting viewers putting on our Facebook walls about what they expect of tomorrow's State of the Nation's address. Hope Kobla Gada says, be honest and talk about the issues for solutions and commendations. And then Bastian Bakari Combat says that I expect a more unifying message from John Dramani Mahama. And Stephen K. Edu Ejenia says the president should step down. Ajekum Eugene says step down to avoid disgrace. Mr. Bento, I think this last message is interesting. Step down to avoid disgrace. I reckon that it's in reaction to the fact that the MPP leadership is in court to challenge the validity of the election results. That's not why we're here. But you think the president should have any concerns about those as he goes in to present the State of the Nation's address tomorrow?
Well, the truth is he has concerns about those. And those concerns will be private and national. The question is, does it belong in the State of the Nation address? Which now goes back again to what should be contained in the State of the Nation's address. My understanding of it is that it should be a snapshot of the state of the nation today, especially in terms of what has gone on in the past year. So let's understand that it is not about all the things that have happened since. It is a snapshot of 1 year. Now, there are a few things that are more important, more pressing, or have happened in the past year which are more, more serious than the elections we had. And the fact that the elections are still hanging is one of the key issues informing the state of the nation today. So even if the president has private problems or private issues or concerns, I think there are national concerns also, and it must feature in his State of the Nation's address. I can understand maybe why he would dodge it, but if he dodges it, that would be unfortunate. Okay? And I expect him to be presidential about it, and I've already commended him for his handling of the. He has been challenged. And the big picture, and for those of us in the analyst community, that is really what we are looking at. The bigger picture is that we have a system which stops at the Supreme Court. For the past years that we have dealt with our elections, we have simply stopped, for the most part, at the Electoral Commission. A number of cases have gone to court. There's a whole handbook, okay, from the judiciary about electoral disputes and all those things. And maybe for good, okay, it may be useful for the development of our democracy, okay, that we exercise those extra muscles which extend to the Supreme Court. So I'm not talking about the merits or demerits of the case per se.
Yeah.
But it is a good thing that we've hitherto stopped at the Electoral Commissioner, for the most part, as far as presidential elections are concerned. But assuming all the acrimony and emotions and everything were off, it is not a bad thing for us to have a situation where the decision-making is extended to the Supreme Court. All right? It is better for you to go to court at every little irritation, okay, and get adjudication of your case properly in a civilized way than to pick up a cutlass and hack people at the greatest provocation.
Yeah.
So for me, the issue of going to court is a good thing. That's one. Number two, what this is going to do is therefore exercise those muscles. So I would think the president should be, open-minded about that.
You think he should touch on it?
I think
in the State of the Nation's address?
In the State of the Nation address, and calm the nation and say, we have this situation, don't worry. He should be confident that he won the election. He should say it. I believe I won this election because I believe I didn't do anything untoward. And the place where that will be determined is the court of law.
It's the Supreme Court.
Yes. So he should first, clarify the issue of going to court and cleanse it so people don't have a negative view of the issue of going to court. And then he can come to the specific issues, and I want my president to look me in the eye and tell me that if there were mistakes with the electoral process, those mistakes rest with the Electoral Commission. And I expect them to come and answer to it in court because it is in everybody's interest. And I want my president to look me in the eye and tell me that I did not do anything wrong. And I have won this seat fair and square. And the court will bear me out.
That will be very reassuring to every Ghanaian.
It will be reassuring. And then I want my president to tell me that when the court makes a decision, I would expect anybody or everybody involved to abide by that decision, and I will put a firm foot down against all acts of lawlessness.
Let's lump together education, health, and maybe agriculture and utility, water, electricity, and all that, so that we can quickly discuss these as a lump. Now, in a State of the Nation's address, education, for example, why should we be looking at the problem? Should we be thinking about solving? If the president is to give a snapshot on education, what should he be telling us?
He should be going in the middle path between free education and quality education. Those arguments were very central in the election. He took one part, Nanado took another part. Now, I don't know.
But they haven't featured much in the past 12 months in terms of practically on the ground. I mean, free education is not.
No, I'm talking about the issues that happened in the campaign.
Okay.
Now, because they are topical, they are important. Now, if you take the campaign, in education itself, things were happening. And in fact, a lot of that informed what ended up in the campaign. So the 3-year, 4-year issue is a big deal. Anybody involved in education management today has that on their mind. And most parents whose children are going to SS have that on their mind. Will it be 3 years or 4 years?
I keep asking my nieces, are you doing 4 years or you're doing 3 years? I want to be sure.
So it is pertinent to the state of the nation. And I would want my president to speak to that. He should give me a certain assurance. You know, in a nation, what leaders must do is show the way, remove doubt. So the president, for instance, should tell me that for as long as I remain president, it will be 4 years. Then we can all think. Or I'm going to change it to 3 years. Then we can all think. Free, not free. Quality, what is quality, all those things. It will be nice. And please, this is a short address, so he can't say anything.
Everything.
But give me an indication that I am going to do 1, 2, 3 concerning education, to the extent that even though I don't make it free, I'm going to do one. And already some of those things were in the campaign.
Yeah.
This is a good time to reiterate those things. But let's not forget, the state of the nation is not supposed to be prospective. It is historical.
Yeah.
Okay, so he should talk about why we are, why did Nanado make those big promises about free education, and why was it so popular? Well, maybe some people will say it was not popular, but I think it was popular. And he should speak to that, because that has featured in the past 1 year, and speak to some of the things that he's going to do, you know, towards that.
What about health? I mean, recently the stakeholders, NHI stakeholders, recommended that the whole idea of the one-term premium should be scrapped, and then also recommended that the premiums should be increased to 4% NHIL or something of that sort. What about, I mean, what aspects of this should the president be talking to the nation about?
NHIL is central. That is the biggest thing happening in health today. The president should say something definite about it. It's interesting that now these things have been said. We from day one at Imani said, forget about one-time premium, it won't happen. And if it happens, it will destroy the whole scheme.
But government contested that.
They went on and on and on. It's interesting they've come down to the point that we are. And again, that is why I talk about what informed that decision. Because when you refuse, you see, you must analyze success as much as you analyze failure. This is failure, analyze it. Why did we have this problem? Then you won't repeat.
But wouldn't Ghanaians say that the government was deceptive in making a huge promise which brought it to power? I mean, Mills almost won power by that promise, and then it couldn't deliver first time over, and now it comes to the realization
there is honesty,
that
and then there is
you
deception.
can't perform.
Okay, and people really know when you are being honest with them, and they know when you are deceiving them. And sometimes the better part of bravery is to know when to retreat. Maybe they had the intention to do it. And I would ask as an analyst, what informed that decision making? But even if you made the decision, you've come down 1 year and you were not able to do it, I would, for instance, expect my president to look me in the eye and say, I wanted to give you one-time premium, free NHIs, so that you get this, that. We did our best. It didn't work. Because of that, this will happen. Of course, you have people complaining, but people can tell when you are deceiving them. People can tell when you're fighting for them and you are being truthful with them. And in any case, like I said, we have been in the situation. It didn't happen. So he should be honest about it. Then again, tell me what you are going to do going forward. Today, there's a story about Kolebu. Okay? And I always say that, again, look at Kolebu. You know, when I talk about the frustration of we shouldn't have the problems we have, Kolebu is one of those examples. Kolebu in other places is a small hospital. One man can run that thing with his little finger. I'm not kidding you. I'm not saying it is not a complex thing or whatever. It's a big hospital by our standards. But go check elsewhere.
Yeah.
all right? And we keep dancing around Kolebu. Issues of lifts become a big deal. Every time we have questions around Kolebu. In our view, at Imani, in our view, the fundamental issue has to do with the fact that government has decided that health workers and the health system will remain in the civil and public services. That is the fundamental problem. We believe if you take it out of that place, and number of things will be not privatized per se. It's not privatized as in wholly private. But yes, many people, including poor people, when they really have health issues, go to private clinics. So let's not talk about privatization as if it is such a bad thing. But my point is, should everything be in the civil service? Should everything be in the public service? Not everything should be there, especially when they're essential.
You think government is overburdened with civil service and public service management?
When you say overburdened again, there is a balancing act there. As far as I'm concerned, managing 600,000 workers in the land space of Ghana, which is less than half of what Walmart is doing, is not a big job. So it's a matter of the load and your capacity. And clearly, we don't have the capacity to run these things. And there are many ways. The army is not in the civil service. Okay? So we should find a way, and it comes about by sitting down and thinking through the issue. The first thing you do, in any case, it may sound populist, but it is a good thing. Abolish all flights for all government officials and ministers going out for medical treatment. So they know we are all stuck with Kolebu like the rest of us. Okay? And then get people in a locked room to come up with some kind of solution to deal with this once and for all. And you know what? It is not money. If somebody does an audit of how much money flows through our health system, and Kolebu in particular, you'll be amazed. Okay? So you ask yourself, why then do we have all these problems? All right? Government should sit down and sort that thing out. Health is a big deal. And frankly speaking, expecting or assuming that everybody is poor and therefore nobody can pay for health and so everything must be free for everybody is part of our problem. People who go to Kolebu know how much they pay even when NHI is supposed to be free. So again, I'm hoping that there will be honesty and some good thinking, research and analysis, and then good decision making, monitoring, and then bringing certain things to a point, because the problems we have are...
Mr. Bento, in under a minute, give me a snapshot if you were the President of the Republic and you were the nation's address tomorrow. Give me a snapshot of what you will put before Ghanaians, item by item.
Well, I can't do that in under a minute, but I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll look at the things that affect Ghanaians, and I'll look at social, I'll look at economic, and I'll look at a few topical issues. Clearly, I'll speak about water. I'll speak about health. The energy, okay? Energy, it's fundamental to everything. And I'll speak about education. I would also speak about telecommunications. I'm talking about mobile phones. So much of our lives are going onto that platform. I'll speak about a solid infrastructure, making sure that people can do their business. There are many people whose lives rest on their mobile phones. And then go beyond that to ICT. I'll talk about fiber optics, talk about connectivity, all these things that make businesses work. So telecoms generally. And I'll talk about transportation. Generally, all these things put together make the cost of running a country, the cost of running a business, and the cost of living your life low, and takes out stress. They are not too big. Ghana is a small country, even in West Africa. So I'll speak about some of the things that have happened in the past, the lessons that we have learned, and what we are going to do concerning those things. And then I'll mention something which I think has been missed for a while. Ghana is an import-dependent country. We are not too proud to say, but that's a fact of life. A lot of the imports come through three places: Kotoka, Tema, and Takrady. When you go to those places, the one big thing that stares you in the face is stress. Stress. I will speak about how to facilitate this economy by loosening the tight bolts in some of those places. And the details, I can't go into it, but the fact of the matter is that our economy is a service economy. The service wing of our economy is growing, and I will speak about how we should facilitate that so more people can be employed and more people can have ease when it comes to doing their business and getting on with their lives. Then I'll talk about the things that people think about, like judgment debts, things that sit on people's minds, okay? That what is our government doing about that? Security. The armed robbery menace has gone down. That's a fact. But it is not entirely over. I will speak to that, and I'll speak to issues that affect people: gas, petrol, you know, some of those things. At the end of the day, look, not everybody is looking to government to feed them. What they are looking to government to do is make my life easier than it is. And I think that at least our government should be able to do.
Thank you very much for that insight, Mr. Bento. You should be president. My name is Stephen Enti, and thanks for all of you who made time to contribute and watch us. We apologize we were unable to bring Kwesi Pratt on. The line kept going crazy. Thanks for your time and good night.